Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the News Behind the News with Ralph Kintava on Mix 94.7 FM. And today I'm joined with Mr. Theo Heyliger. And like I said, this discussion is going to be tourism, projects, and politics. So we're still on the part of tourism, kind of touching on projects. But one of the things that come to mind is, of course, cruise tourism. That is something that you've been lauded for, of course, for your contributions in that sector. But looking at tourism industry today and the challenges that were brought forth by COVID, where do you see St. Martin moving forward in the future? And what do you think is an additional economic pillar that we can count on to support us for the next good amount of years, let's say a couple of decades from now? I do understand there's a challenge, considering.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
There's a few things, and I've always when I was Minister of Tourism, I looked at it that our tourism was like a chair, in the sense that every leg I considered a different part of our tourism. One, you had your hotel product, you had your cruise product, and you had your mega yacht and yachting industry part of it. And then I also considered, timeshare to be because timeshare was or is a huge product in St. Martin. But now you have to add in another part where I would consider Airbnb and the condominium industry to be major parts within. We spent a lot of time on discussions in Phillipsburg. Mm-hmm. And I still believe that is where a lot of the emphasis should come on in terms of developing the waterfront of Phillipsburg to where the properties there can be financed and built into condominiums and thus bringing people with money into the capital. Because everybody says, well, it's always in Simpson Bay and that. No, well, you have developers, but now you have to incentivize them. Mm-hmm. And I say that because everybody's looking now for the investor money. But we have to be creative, and we can. Like I said, again, we have billions of dollars in our country. But if I just love that statement that Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister from Barbados, mentioned. The banks treat the money of St. Martin as if it's their own and they're the security guard of it. They come up with no plans or strategy to help the country move forward either. And although their main business is in Phillipsburg, they don't even want to help you finance your parking problem, which can help alleviate their issues for their own customers. You see? So this is where I miss out when we had a very strong SHTA. The Chamber of Commerce, you used to hear from them speak out about certain things. And there was where you had a private sector that used to work with government. You don't really see that come out anymore. But again, to get back to your original question, it's got to be the redevelopment of Phillipsburg and into the fact of you got to build like condominiums or things like that to create revenue for the country. People would say, well, St. Martin is overbuilt already. Well, I can agree with that completely. But if we don't look at making sure that the income for the country is not only put on the backs of our local people, but is broadened to others, it's going to be an issue. And again, I say that I think the mega yacht industry is still a great potential to grow, but then the departments have to want it to grow. And I say that because we're not developing, for example, the Simpson Bay Lagoon. We need to widen the present Lejwe Bridge, but also allow the mega yachts to be able to moor. So you need those properties to also develop and build proper docks for the facilities like that. There's a lot of things that need to be still done.
Yeah, because when you're saying what comes to mind, though, is the environmental factor. Mm-hmm. Because over the years, St. Martin has changed, of course. You look at old pictures of the island. Mm-hmm. But there is an environmental cost that we've took a hard hit in our development. Mm-hmm. So I guess how do you then balance building, create new projects and stuff, while still ensuring that, the detriment, whether it's with climate change, rising sea levels and stuff, that we are not that heavily impacted?
Well, look, to a certain extent, again, depends which government is in, your hilltops are protected. But here comes the point. If a government changes, certain policies change. So what needs to be done is the laws need to be written so that Parliament has to change the law. And if Parliament changes the law, it becomes a big debate. And then the population knows who you voted for, what they're going to change. But if a minister goes in and changes the policy, you tend to not get the answers that, let me put it this way, that you're looking for. Now, to say about the environment, let's just deal with the lagoon, okay? From the Causeway Bridge to where Tropicana is. Have you ever taken a drive by, let's call, Ile de Sol towards the back of Tropicana Casino in a boat? Okay. That area is completely 1,000% polluted. And you know why, Mr. Kantar? Years ago, they had the big fire down at Prime. You remember that?
No. I was heard of it.
You was probably in school then, right?
So.
Sorry, I don't mean it
no,
bad
it's okay.
way, but
I was heard of it, but
okay.
I don't know.
There was a big fire.
Yeah.
There were tens of containers of Clorox, Tide, detergent, you name it, in there. And when that fire happened, all of that, guess where it went?
In the lagoon.
In the lagoon, my friend. So that entire area has never been cleaned. There was no insurance regulated for cleanup of that area. Now that is a total environmental disaster because nothing lives in there. It is completely polluted. The water is dead there. There's no way that the water can circulate there. Okay? So there's never been any cleanup effort. But at the same time, while the water is dead, the docks being built, very few people have the real water rights, and government doesn't collect fees for the area either. So while, yes, you're talking about environment, but at the same time now docks can't be built there either. So you could have said, listen, while you're building the docks, you have to clean up the area, or we come up with some sort of fee. I'll give you another example. And this is where I would really, I have a few issues with the World Bank. World Bank did a great job in the cleanup of the wrecks of the lagoon. But they spent millions in consultant fees. I think at least 5 or 6 million. Nearly half of it went in that. But what stops now another disaster like that happening again? You understand where I'm going?
Yep.
How come the World Bank, with their great vision, didn't say, government, I will clean up your lagoon, but now you have to show me how you could do it yourself. It's like giving the guy, the line to fish.
Well, it's not even their vision, because at the end, it's projects that we pitched.
Yes, no, but correct. But what I've learned, like for example, the dump, okay? They said they're going to help clean up, but then we had to move the people. So they didn't see that we would have a wreck again. So a hurricane comes, more boats come into our lagoon, okay? And here's my point. BVI has certain regulations. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let us take some of their laws that protect their environment so that you don't have anchorage everywhere. We put in moorings. You can charge fees for the moorings, okay? And those fees then go into a fund that in the event of another cleanup of the lagoon, you could do it. So now you become self-sustained. I always believe in the projects that you start should be self-sustainable, okay? If we picked up, I think over 200-300 wrecks in that lagoon, because they go back from before 95 to now. But now there's nothing there stating that how do you collect fees in the event something else happens, or that we didn't put legislation in place that say, listen, because what happens? A guy comes in with his yacht, it sinks, he goes to an insurance company, they write him the check, not only for the yacht, but for the cleanup. You see? So he keeps the cleanup and he leave the boat there, and then government got to pay for it. That's not fair. So you follow me where I'm going? So what we have to have, no, you can't come in my lagoon, our lagoon, the country lagoon, and just dock and throw your anchor. Either you come to a dock that makes now the dock owner responsible for that yacht. Or you go to a mooring placed by government, or if government give it as a concession out to somebody. But when he comes to that, he got to show that he's insured and that the country gets the money in the event that it's cleaned up.
Gotcha.
So if we place those things, all of a sudden now, what have we done? I get back to your question. We just safeguarded the environment. Look at that big, it was a party boat. It's still up on the rocks in Beacon Hill.
Well, I can't remember which one.
It used to be parked behind there in Simpson Bay. There used to be a big party boat parked up and parties going. So they put it outside, and thank goodness for that. They took it outside, and then it ended up on Beacon Hill. So if you go by character and you see over there, you're going to see a boat. All the plastic and everything still on the boat. So next hurricane come, all the plastic goes in the ocean. And nobody is gone after the owner of the boat. You see where we're going? So now the country got to clean it up. And also the environment gets impacted too, because all that plastic and the roof and everything go in there. So these are points that if we put together a think tank and say, listen, these are the things that we need to do, there you go. Like SLAC. That's the Simpson Bay Lagoon Authority, right?
Yeah.
It's like a toothless tiger. It really can't do anything inside the lagoon. But if you come up now with a plan, like I think the French side has it with moorings. Even the Nature Foundation, I think, have the moorings where the Proselyte Reef is. You can't anchor out there. You can only go by mooring. So you do the same concept around the waters of St. Martin, that if you want to come into our waters, you have to moor. The BVI has it. USVI has it. I think even in the French side have a lot of it now too. So no need to reinvent the wheel. Just go online and find out what the laws are of certain countries and implement them in St. Martin.
Mm. Well, speaking of mooring and waters, I know one of the things in the past that you stood for was the expansion of the port, and basically things shifted where that didn't necessarily take place, and I think where we saw that happen was in Tortola, if I'm not mistaken. What is your thoughts on that? But also, going back to the boardwalk, was the intention to have it go further down till Dunk Street, like all the way down?
The boardwalk, and then you're going to have to explain me what the question you wanted before that. But the boardwalk was funded this way. It wasn't paid for by government. What had happened, we did some studies. A lot of people, what they did, they overbuilt their boundaries, sometimes quite substantially. So what we did is say, listen, if you build over your boundary, we'll give you the opportunity to buy the land. And the funding from that, we're going to build the boardwalk. And what that did, I could show you probably some older pictures, where the entire foundation was underwater in Phillipsburg. So it protected Phillipsburg because it's sheet pile, and then the concrete is on top. And that's how we funded. Of course, the first phase was easier because of the economic progress. Mm. The second phase also we were able to do with the economic progress. The last phase, because there's really very little development down there, the appetite to buy the land was not there. So that's why it never continued. And then, the problem is certain governments, you would have people come in and then they say, well, if Theo started it, I ain't continuing it because that's his project. I need to show my own shine. So that's why it never continued either, I think, because nobody pushed to continue. But you have to be, in my opinion, creative instead of always putting your hand out and begging for money. I never believed in that. And everyone that knows me, all of the projects that we did were basically funded through our own strengths.
Yeah. Okay, so the clarification, my previous question was in regards to the expansion with another pier. So
actually what you meant is lengthened in Pier 2.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me explain you that one. So before the pier was built in Tortola, I was in government, that was 2010, 2011. We were in negotiations because, by the way, Carnival and Royal Caribbean, two of the fiercest competitors ever. The first time that they ever invested together in a pair was St. Martin. So we made history with that. And I was very proud of that factor.
When was
So-
that? How far back was that?
Oh, this goes back to that's
90s?
right before 2010. That was I think 2009, somewhere around there.
Okay, okay.
But anyway,
yeah.
so, but the idea, I never stopped there. And Disney at that time had ordered 2 more ships. So one of the biggest things that I pride myself into and the people around me too is that you got to do research. And that was even easier because of the internet. But we always stayed in constant contact with the cruise lines. So you knew what ships were being built. That's why we built that pier before the Oasis class ships were even built. We had the pier already going. And that's why Royal Caribbean gave us the ships that we had. So the idea was we saw Disney was ordering 2 more ships. So that would bring her fleet up to 4. Also, another major player in the Caribbean was ordering ships, which was MSC, Mediterranean Shipping Company. And then also you had the, which one was it? Is it called? Anyway, one other cruise line. So we approached the 3 of them saying, listen, would you be willing to finance the expansion of Pier 2 so that we would lengthen it to go for 2 more ships? And they were prepared to do the same, more or less, exact deal that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened? Government fell. I went out. And when the Disney Cruise Line CEO and president again approached government, there was no real interest. And then they went to Tortola and they built a pier. And then you have certain politicians say, I own the pier at Tortola. Then I wouldn't be in St. Martin. I'll be in Tortola. But it was a pity. We lost out on it. It broke my heart because we would have had Disney, MSC, and another cruise line as well. Again, also making a similar deal to Royal and Carnival. And when you get somebody to invest, again, a teaching from my grandfather, he always said, Theo, if they invest, they just can't pick it up and leave with it. So they can't pick up the pay and go with it. So once you have their money, it's there. Because Royal Caribbean and Carnival, imagine that. When they didn't bring ships, we don't have to pay the loan. Because it's tied into the passenger flow that you bring. So we had borrowed money from Carnival at 5% or 5.5%. If you look at what Carnival went and issued bonds for, is over 11, 12%. So imagine we had Carnival's money paying 5.5%, and they're borrowing money now at 12. So I'm very proud, like I said again, of what we were able to accomplish.
Okay.
But in addition to that, the cruise sector in St. Martin, through various studies, and not only by the cruise lines, but various studies, showed that the cruise ship passenger was paying nearly as much, or if not more, than a hotel guest in St. Martin. So the question of, we're looking for high-class tourists, I always laughed. I said, but if we're getting nearly $160 per passenger, the number one expenditure in the whole Caribbean by the passenger. And then the crew was also around nearly the same number because you had to do things for them. And you had to make sure you build the proper facilities for them, but the tours and everything like that. That was why Emilia Wilson was such an important project. And I still am very happy with it. It's such a beautiful project. It opened the wrong time, with Irma and now COVID. So, but the industry, the cruise, has been probably the hardest hit of anywhere else for COVID. It's going to take some time to get it back. Even though the ships are coming, they're about 50% capacity because people still scared, they're still nervous.
Cruise ships are known for, easy.
And they need the flow. That's why these big ships are there.
Gotcha. So I guess now, finally go into politics. Well, okay, so, Simon has been in tourism business for many years. And you look at the problems that Simon face, and some of them are not new. I hear people from your generation or older talk about some of the same challenges that we face today. But when you look at matters of, let's say, the development of Simon people, education-wise, or university and so forth, do you find that too much of an emphasis was placed on just generating income and not enough on developing, St. Martin's to be not just consumers and workers in the industry, but to be owners, to be, producers as well?
Well, Mr. Kandavi, you got to go back years and look at who owned the land. The foreigner didn't own the land. The locals owned the land. And back in the days of my grandfather, locals are the only ones that got erfpak, government land. Okay, unless you're a big developer. So they had the opportunities by giving land. A lot of people, as they got the land, they sold it to buy a car and stuff like that. I think now the issue is more of we're not building a educated workforce to accommodate what the country needs. Yourself, you might be one of the very few that went away and studied journalism. Okay, does the country need journalists? Yes, it does. If you look at who's asking the questions in the Council of Ministers or whoever, you would question yourself. You look at the opportunities we brought up. The gentleman that is doing agriculture, who studied agriculture again on the island? Nobody. We looked at the doctors that you mentioned. Your education policy, to me, how I wanted to bring it across. I would say, listen, we need judges, we need lawyers, we need prosecutors, for sure those. And we need locals, I'm saying, because they understand the country. We need farmers, we need all of these. There are certain specific fields that I would say in education, I'll give 100% scholarship for, that you don't pay it back if you study it and you come back to work in the country. And this means to say also in government services too, finance. Because if you don't incentivize your young people, why would I go to study? Why would my son want to go and study to become a lawyer if he know he got paid back and his salary is going to be next to nothing here because if he go to work for government? Okay? He go to work in Holland, he makes a bigger amount and he come back here as a consultant. You see? So, and we're not saying, even to say, I'm going to build you a house and I'm going to rent it to you at a lower part if you come back to Somalia. Again, the same thing I'm going back to with the business. We talk a lot, but we don't give the incentivizing for your business or for your population to say, I'm going to study this. And I'm going a little further of a program that I've asked, recommended to nearly every minister that comes in. And it might veer away a little bit from your question, but I think it's relevant. One of the biggest sectors within the country right now is still the heavy equipment and construction, okay? Do we have anywhere, when I brought it up to NEPA and all of those too, that teaches you how to drive a excavator, a dump truck, a concrete truck, a crane? And where's most of these businesses going? It's a lot in that. A lot of our young people are very hands-on, but my son, I mean, he could tell you everything with the game, right? And guess what? Driving a crane up in the harbor is basically that, is playing on a console. Driving the big machines up there, driving the equipment on the airport. Do you see our local people in there? I think a great incentive the other day was done between Minister Otley and Seven Seas, who produces water, that they would give a scholarship for somebody that wants to learn about water. Have you ever heard GB, tell him, airport, or even the harbor, or any of these institutions are going to give a full scholarship? Do you see them going into the schools and say, listen, give me your 10 best electricians and I'm going to bring them into GB, let them see the engines. I'm going to put 4 good people down at just on the papers, some concrete and build a new plant. Let them learn about that. You understand where I'm going? That you're trying to get your own local people to be involved in the economy too. But you have to do not only job fairs, you got to get them from when they're young. And if you don't get them from when they're young, I was also, again, I like to do research. You know, Barbados is now Mia Matley wants to put in an institution that is teaching kindergarten kids and first graders about finance. And I was very amazed because that's an unbelievable position to put, because now you're teaching your kids to be involved in a whole different reality or world than just telling them, yeah, 1 and 1 is 2. No, now we're telling you about the debt ratio of a company. Imagine that. And it's that's where you want to go. But if you don't get the mentality in your own government to understand that those positions are what you need to go, we're not going anywhere. And that's where, I just don't see it.
I got you. Okay. So one of the questions I have for you is, looking at your years in politics, what do you think are some of the main differences from back in your day? Say your prime was started out in the late 90s to now.
The ease of doing business in our country. For you to, like I said again, open a business in this country, and you're a journalist, so you could even do a whole thing on that. Go to the notary and try and get a foreigner to go to the notary to you apply for a business license, a NV or BV. And if you see the requirements there, then go online and check what the French side does and check what Holland does and apply it on both sides, and you will see a big difference. And don't take my word for it. It takes us, by the time you finish, first of all, you got to go get a crib number over there. Then you got to go get police record. Then you got to go over here. And it to me, it's all over the place. You go online in Holland, in 3 days, you get business. Here, by the time you finish all of it, it's another 9-month process. I'm saying we need to streamline that. You need to be able to say, listen, I want to buy a company that does real estate. These are the points. Bam, bam, bam. I should be able to get my license in an X amount of days. At the same time, put in also for a building permit for a house or any commercial development. That's going to take you minimum a year. Minimum a year. So the point is that what has changed more or less, and I'm not saying that don't put the proper procedures in place, but the doing business in our country as a local and even a foreigner is nearly impossible to be able to get anything done in Samad. That is one. It was also a different atmosphere than what is going on now. I mean, it's a lot of people are scared, let me put it that way, to even do business in the country because of all the stuff that goes on. So I think that's also one. And there's much more competition now. And the competition level has raised so much. Yeah. Not on St. Martin, but other countries. I mean, Aruba is a prime example of they love tourism. We tend to now, I don't know what is the mentality, but we want to run tourists rather than invite them. And Aruba is the total opposite. St. Kitts is, the British Islands were always looked upon as the ones that were extremely tough on immigration. Now they're opening up. And we getting tougher by the day. One of the things that I look at, and I'm going to bring it up, although you didn't ask the question, but for example, immigration. The United States government and the Dutch government signed the Dutch U.S. Friendship Treaty. Was put to the test here that a U.S. citizen wanted to get a work permit, took government to court, and actually won. Now I'm saying the main issue of our immigration is so that especially foreigners can come in, take jobs and that. So then why not, since it's a signed treaty, let the U.S., especially now that our airport is under construction, do a trial period for 2 years while it's under construction and say, now, American citizens, you have a different status in our country. You could come in, you just tell us where you're staying, boom. It would change. It would be something completely different in the Caribbean because, again, none of the other Dutch Caribbean islands have done it, and we would be in a category nearly like a U.S. the majority of our tourists are American. If you look at the statistics of crime and issues, it is 0.0% are committed by them. So it can't be, that why we wouldn't. They're not a high risk area, and it will be a nice way to change the type of mentality that is going on. So that is where I say that you ask me again, go back. What has changed is that there's no longer creativity in the country. Now we come up with how to make it nearly impossible to do anything in the country anymore.
Okay, so that touches on my curiosity as far as, what do you think about this new generation of politicians, and of course my generation, and what advice would you give any?
I don't want to get in trouble with the new generation because they tend to be very feisty. But it's. I look forward to you seeing their initiatives and ideas. It's a industry. I mean, not sorry, industry. It's a breed that Facebook determines a lot of the reactions or the actions of a lot of politicians nowadays. Me, I stayed away from Facebook because if I promised the population this is what I was going to do, and you voted for me, well, that means you agreed with what I was going to do. And I can't just allow 2-3 people on Facebook to change their mind of, in my case, over 2,000 people that voted for me to not do what I promised them to do. And that's where it's got to come down to, too, that if you got to be able to stick to your word and not change it because Facebook or, Instagram or whoever else comes up with a point and then everything goes haywire. That and the fact that you should know a little bit, one of the things that I prided myself on as well is knowing the history. So if you know there's a history of why this was built that way or this was designed that way, before you go change it completely, I'm not saying the change is not bad, but try to know the history of why it was done this way, and maybe it can work, but you just need to, put a little bit more rubber on the wheel or something like that. So it's not, and not everything from the past is bad.
Gotcha. Okay, so that now leads me to asking you about the leader of the UP party, the party you founded, Rolando Bryson, which of course he had his day on social media. Let's put it like that. What was your motivation for making him, the leader of the UP party? What stood out? What about him gave you that confidence that he should have been leader?
Well, first of all, we got to make sure too. You have the party itself is made up with board, party council. You got to go through the the Congress. Mm-hmm. So it isn't me to specifically say.
Big style. Okay, I got what you're saying.
You understand? Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of people don't know history. Again, I go back to the history. You know that Mr. Bryson worked for me when I was commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things he worked for me, I think, in the summer, and I'm very surprised that he never mentioned the fact that he actually did a parking study for me for the whole of Phillipsburg. And he did a very nice job at it in the sense that what he did, M cars, R cars, how many rooms, how many apartments were in the whole of Phillipsburg. And that's how we came up with numbers that we could actually give in to Almira when they came. His own plan that he did. I don't see that happening anymore. In addition to that, I think he has a lot of potential. If you listen to him in Parliament, Rolando can speak. He's one of the few that actually, reads and things and researches. The issue is, I think he's young. So you also want to be not labeled, that you listen to Theo. So you have to show that your own way, and especially with the millennials, okay? But I think The youngness in him is probably the only issue that, well, you still like to party and things like that. And you got to realize now with social media, well, everything you do is now
Scrutinized.
instant news. Yeah, and you got to be very careful in what you do. But I think, you have to give people a chance, an opportunity, and hopefully he's will reorganize his lifestyle now to push what needs to be done for Somalia.
Gotcha. Something that just came to mind then is why did you choose to become a politician? And I ask that because it seems like you're someone who perhaps might have thrived more in the private sector.
Well, as a child, I was the eldest grandchild of my grandfather. And as a child, I never wanted to. I was never comfortable in children parties, and I never used to go. And I always wanted to be around my grandfather. And I could remember, like you said at the beginning of the program, maybe in my autobiography, I could write it. Going to meetings with him, with the politicians from Curacao and Aruba, Mr. Betico Cruz, Mr. Bickert from Curacao, and I can even remember meetings with Mr. Jan de Koning, with my grandfather. And I always loved the fact of him helping people. And it was very easy. Well, he made it very easy in helping people. You would come, say you wanted to study journalism, and he'd ask you, who's your parents? And when you tell him, oh, I know her, and he writes a little note, and that was your scholarship. I ain't saying that it was the greatest, but guess what? You had your scholarship then, and St. Martin didn't have the red tape that it has today. So it was a lot of, again, the love for the people too. I tended to love the part of the social contact with the people more than anything else. Than the business side of it in just making money. I can tell you of people that come in my office and they're asking you for a vending permit, and I could say it because I'm not ashamed of it. I would write the same letter to myself as commissioner that day with them sitting there, show it to them, say sign, all right, good, and then they leave in basically nearly with their permit. And I did it all legal. I wouldn't tell them, listen, you got to go to here and you got to go there. Because the poor people didn't understand how to do it. And especially our elder person, I'm not going to make them go and stand in a line and all of those things. So it was, again, I would say more the love for the people and wanted to see the country flourish as well.
Okay, gotcha. So one of my questions for you, Mr. Heyliger, is as far as your experience going through the justice chain.
Mm-hmm.
You've been to jail.
Mm-hmm.
You were at the prison, the courts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Can you detail that experience and what did you realize are in need of improving?
Well, I'm going to tell you now. I can remember a certain politician say he went from car washer to commissioner. Well, I can say now I went to all levels in society now as well. That experience, especially the jail in town, the facilities in Point Blanche, that creates a criminal, okay? And when I was in there, I had a lot of young people. And the young person will come in. When you put them in those facilities, it's like you're tying up a dog and you're going to make him into a bad dog. Because you do nothing to rehabilitate them. And I saw that in my time up there. There are no programs. You sit in a cell and you just count the, if you're lucky, tiles. In town, you count the mosquitoes. Nothing works in the facilities. It's a very, very terrible situation. And I say in the sense that I also went to Borneo. They took me to Borneo. I was able to see the sun about 8 hours a day. In Point Blanche, you got 20 minutes.
20 minutes of outside time?
Of the whole day, eh?
Cool.
Yeah, so they would take you out around 4:05, and by 4:25, you got to go back in, and then that's it. And then you have nothing to do for the next day until that day.
Library, gym,
I never
entertainment,
went in
what's available?
I never went in the library. The gym doesn't work. There is no gym teacher or anything like that. They had a pool table, but for 20 minutes, what are you gonna do? So I would just like do a jogging. You had no facilities to wash your clothes, and I understand jail is jail, right? But at the same time, you like I say again, you're turning a person into an animal. So
the idea is rehabilitation.
Yeah, but there's none. So you wash your, like me, I never had even a shelf to put my clothes or even hang my towel. So what they did, they would rip a shirt and they would make a clothesline. So there's no clothesline in your cell.
Did you have a cellmate?
Oh yeah, I had 4. In a size room no bigger than this room we in. So 5 of us would be in here, and well, that's it. There's how you put them together, that doesn't matter. If you book, that takes a few days before they check that nothing is wrong with it. So my point is, why you're not allowed to have, like in Borneo, I was able to have CNN, at least I could watch. Especially like a person like me, I like to research and things like that. Well, I couldn't do that there. You have me locked up. So why can't I then, I'll pay to have my iPad or something that just lets me go on the net. I'm locked up. I'm not going nowhere. Why I can't watch TV? Why I can't be outside? Why I can't have a gym? In the case of them, I'm not even defending myself anymore, but in the case of the younger boys, give them something that they can look forward to, Mr. Kandav, when they come out. And I say it again, I saw boys leaving there, so they got their clothes, they give them a garbage bag, they put it in the garbage bag, and they open the cell, and then that's it. There's no ride down the hill. There's no checking where the person is going. There's no discussion of, listen, maybe you have a job, like 6 months before you come out, or a year before you come out.
So a sort
There's
of
nothing
dignifying
like that.
of the individual.
Sorry?
A sort of dignifying of the individual.
Well, you want to, your goal should be to rehabilitate somebody, right? Or your goal, in my case, you punish them for the crime that I so-called did. Okay, good. But it doesn't mean that you demonize them to the point where you make them come out now hating society.
And
that's what is happening.
They tend to
so
go
when
back in.
the guy comes out, he's so angry with society because society is the one that while you're up there, doesn't take care of you, doesn't give you any kind of dignity. And here's my point. If we follow all the Dutch want us to do, then why we don't follow their so-called rules in the same things? And I'm getting 20 minutes outside. That used to kill me. Really kill me. So you couldn't exercise. You're in there with 4 other men in the room, and you get 20 minutes a day. Those things really do hurt you. And then, like I say, you come out and give you now true experiences with many of them. They come out, they can't open a bank account. So even if they go work for whatever, McDonald's, Burger King, whatever, and they get a check or they got to make a transfer, how are they going to get paid? Okay? So now they can't get that. Then they can't get GB because you don't have a bank account to pay. So you as society too, or the Ministry of Justice, you should be helping them. You should be trying to say, and there's a lot there, a lot of young people. A lot of them I knew because of elections and everything as well. And so they would call out my name and that, and I would help them, but yeah, only 20 minutes I could be outside. So they would call out from the cell and things like that. And it's a dangerous situation too, I will tell you that. Because nothing works up there. You can't call nobody. It's a very, very, very nasty situation, and it's really disgusting. But again, like I said, I did my time up there. I guess I will have to do more time again. But it's a hurtful thing for especially them young people, because I know what's going to happen. And you saw it. A guy spent 8 years in there. 2 weeks later, he gone, he shoots somebody, back in there again. So what did you do? And the question, what I think that nobody asked the Minister of Justice, how many cases are actually that they come out and that you can say that you're proud of? I've never seen that. I've never seen where you say, look at this guy. He came out of penitentiary and he had a job and he has this and we're proud of that and we bring him back now in to be able to motivate the fellow other inmates that are in there. And those are things that you need, because you need to educate a lot of them, again, a lot of young guys, and that's the hurtful part, is that it's a lot of young people in there, and they become very violent.
It's an alarming situation.
Very, very violent. Anyway.
Gotcha. Yeah. So for sake of clarification, your case is your case is not in appeal. Would you have to be serving time?
I'm still the first. So I had one of my let me see, so many cases they have with me. So one case I won.
I think that's a Larry Marr.
No, the first one.
Catfish.
Catfish. Yeah, you're good, man. Yes, catfish. I won that. They put that in appeal. Then Larry Marr. I got sentenced for 5.5 years, yeah, and then even the prosecutor appealed like they want 7, and then they have this unnaming case that they say that I have what 17 million or something like that. So which now, based on that, most of everything that I have has either been sold or they put liens on, whether I have loans on them or not. What I've learned with the
well, are you in a position of a sitting duck, so you're waiting finalization?
More or less.
Okay.
Yeah, more or less.
So
more or less.
You don't know whether or not you'll be serving time?
Yeah, I'll be serving time, for sure. They would never let me stay at home or whatever, for sure. I think that I was too much of a big fish. They wanted to get and actually show, a position on. So, let me see how that will work out with my health and all of that too. So yeah.
And that will end up being in St. Martin?
I don't know what you're asking me questions that I don't know yet.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm being honest with you. I don't know what they will do in my case, where they will send me or when I would go, where I have to go. When it be Point Blanche. I just hope it's not town. But yeah, town is very bad.
Wow. Okay. So one of the things that come to mind is, when you held your rallies during election times and stuff, you got thousands of people who come to support you. And I remember basically when you were locked up, that even when there was a protest, the numbers were different. Maybe I'm not sure how much the numbers were, but let's say maybe less than 100 or so. What does that say to you? Do you find do you feel like abandoned, or how do you feel with that?
Oh, no. I'll tell you something, Mr. Kantab. My votes, if anybody wants to study how they were done, I think it's across all sectors. It's not a particular one group that where my votes come from. Huh? So that was always what I think a lot of the groups that targeted my votes. Yeah, they said, well, he get voted. No, got them from across all boards of life. But there's one in particular that, especially the local foreigner, and I'm talking about more the working class. Anywhere I go, they are also very nice to me. ask me how is my health, how is that going. The bigger business people, they have been the ones that tend to shy away, and for the main reason, because I think what has happened now with the justice system is that everybody's scared. You understand? So they don't want to be associated or be accused of, oh, you told Theo hello, so I won't get questioned. You understand? And well, that be it as it is, But no, there's no resentment at all. When I was up there in Point Blanche, I had a lot of people come and visit me. People that, I would only see them once in a while or not at all, and a lot of people came to visit me. And again, the Dutch side of St. Martin is very different to the French. They riot about everything. Over here, I have yet to see whenever St. Martin has ever rioted, really. So, and not even that in demonstrations for anything. So, it is not our side doesn't stand up per se for that. So, no, there's no resentment. I do, as a matter of fact, I'm very happy. Like I said, if I go shopping or something to whatever, people always come up to me and talk to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're a rioting type.
No, that's what I said.
We have issue of protests. I think one of the protests in the past that do still stand out to me was that of the heavy equipment protest in the it was 1990. Yeah, back in the day. But one thing that came to mind,
Strange you bring that up. And
because
they
it
don't
was
do it
related
anymore.
to the airport and whatnot.
Yeah, and now the airport guys, I don't see no local contractors down there.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on the airport in a few